Intensely sends it to the outside. He can't get there. Kevin King is going to win the Barbizzel FTF Cup Series.
Into the lead. Bud gets wrecked in front of the pack. He saves it. 3-4 wide as they come to the white flag.
Here comes Vargas down on the apron. They are 5 wide. Ian Plash will win it at the line. Is this package? Oh, there goes Jordan Lopez Jr. That's your race leader. Caution flag is out.
Still no one willing to give up as they're going to be dead even off of the first chicane.
Oh, he saves it. What's going to happen here? Here comes the canvas. Oh, get your front there.
He's got it. He's got it. Get there. No.
Canvas is in.
Tonight, it's the battle to see who picks up some hardware and who gets themselves a championship. Tonight, it's the Penguin RC Simulation Grand Am Series as SimCar decides who its champions are to end off the calendar year. I'm Justin Prince, alongside me is Joey Atterbury here on FTFTG with Zach Johnson producing as we get set for the championship finale. We're at iRacing's virtual Spielberg, also known as the Red Bull Ring, Joey. And tonight, the championship for both main classes, as well as for the AM side, could have some interesting twists as part of this 2-race finale round.
I think you hit the nail on the head. There's plenty of drivers that are lining up, taking the grid right now that still have the championship hopes in their grasp out there. Not only the GTPs, but also in the GT3 field. Here is that GTP point standing, Justin.
So far, it's been an interesting year throughout the campaign for SimCar and the Grand Am Series. Blake Reynolds and Brandon Lambert are the ones who have a chance for the GTP Championship. GT3 can go any of one of 4 ways for the pro side. It's very close, to say the very least, Joey.
Yeah, Ray Kingsbury is on top, but look at that. Only 1 point separating himself and Kevin Fanning. But Check that out. Christian Youngwall, Cody Crosgrove, they are each 11 points out of this thing. And with the 2 races on tap tonight, there's plenty of points for any 4 of those drivers to take the top spot.
And keep in mind, Tim Brokaw's in a position where as long as he starts and keeps things clean, can get himself the M Championship here today. Now, qualifying already complete for today's round. Remember, when it comes to the format, 20 minutes for the sprint, 50 for the feature. The drivers now on the track for the sprint race itself. 18 different starters, and keep in mind, throughout the season, some have moved over to GTP. Those include the drivers row 2 on back. Brendan Lambert, Blake Reynolds up front for the start. John Marchbanks should say, alongside Josh Stoltz. Chris Wetz, Kieran Forrest, and Matt Kingsbury are amongst your prototypes. Cody Crosgrove, Ray Kingsbury, Kevin Fanning, Christian Youngwall, your top 4 starters in the GT machinery. Tim Brokaw and Daniel Coletta are amongst the top AMs. We're glad to have you with us for the final round of the season. It's the Penguin RC Simulation Grand Am Series. It's SimCar, and it's here on FTFGG. Green flag is out. We're sprint racing from Spielberg. And a clean start for Brandon Lambert as he keeps himself to the inside. Reynolds goes outside and takes the lead as he starts things off with the GTPs, all while the GT3s head to the start zone.
They are creeping towards the start zone right now, and he nails the gas as Cody Crosgrove out of that pole position on driver's left side. That Ferrari, the number 18, a great hole shot as the GT3 stream up the hill into turn 1. They seem to all be playing nice, especially in the top 5. The run towards turn 3 starts now.
And a very clean start for both classes here today. In turn, expect that run up to turn 3 to be one of your prime opportunities for sends in passes today. A few drivers had crashes in that section. And final practice and qualifying, trying to get the sends down as Crosgrove leads off Ray Kingsbury. Keep in mind, Brandon Lambert, we mentioned him getting shuffled back already. In regards to GTPs, he's all the way back to 3rd, and for the lead, it's Stoltz making the pass outside. Blake Reynolds getting loose, going through the S's, heading to the final complex. Here comes Lambert to take over 2nd.
Yeah, Blake Reynolds is going to slip all the way back to that 3rd place position as they sweep around these final 2 turns at the Red Bull Ring. But now our leader, Stoltz, gets checked up majorly out of the final turn, side by side down the front straightaway. Lambert versus Stoltz. Lambert on the inside going into turn 1.
Through Nicky Lauda curve up the inside. Lambert, he led the way much of practice, set the pole time by a good couple tenths of a second. Right now, 3 wide as Stoltz has issues on the outside. Reynolds, he looks solid on the inside. He commits to the brakes. Stoltz backs out of it and give the lead back to Reynolds. And this is already a dogfight, to say the very least, to start off this final round. Lambert, when chatting with Reynolds, expect him to be very quick today, to say the very least. He looks very prepared with his shuffles. Chris Wetz going for his send for 3rd as well. Remember, he's had podium speed too.
I think that's Kieran Forrest there in the number 42. Just
Yes.
came out of nowhere going down into turn number 4. That is a tricky zone on this track, Justin. It is downhill versus the previous 2 braking zones, which are uphill. You really have to manage that brake pedal pressure.
And just received word with those tech issues Stoltz had, he just lost connection to the racing surface, which means he's out of the conversation, the battle. In turn, it's Reynolds and Lambert who get to battle for the race lead. But you mentioned Keenan Forrest now amongst those in the racing. He was amongst those who joined it around the 4th round of this season. He's in that similar cover to Chris Wentz. And keep an eye on him with how things are, because he's just inside drafting range with these 2 still squabbling up front.
And the other thing about him, he's in the Porsche, and I really look at the top 3 right now in this GTP class. We got a Cadillac leading the way, an Acura in 2nd place, and then the 3rd place of the Porsche. So we've got 3 different manufacturers covering the top 3 spots. We got a 20-minute race that the drivers are going to be very aggressive in right now, plus a 50-minute race later. It'll be really interesting to see how it all plays out.
For reference, when it comes to Forrest, he's the lead Nitro Rallycross contributor for the checkerflag.com. Also does a lot of photography on the real-world racing circuit. You see some of the shuffling amongst the Pro and the Am on the left side of your screen. Remember, the Am in red, the Pro in blue. Crosgrove and Ray Kingsbury They're setting the tempo early in that class. In fact, they've set sail by about a second and a half to the next pack.
I think that this pack right here, Cody Cosgrove, our leader, he's doing what he needs to do. Remember, he's 4th place in points. He's 11 points behind the car that is currently chasing him, that red and blue Ferrari of Ray Kingsbury. So it's going to be kind of a duel. Ray is sitting pretty right now. He's collecting a good amount of points, albeit losing a slight amount to Cody Cosgrove. However, if he stays clean out here, stays with a level head, I think a 2nd place puts him in a great position come the feature.
And it leads to an interesting conversation point, because currently your top runners in each of these championship conversations currently, when you look at the team breakdowns, essentially, you're talking about, for the GTPs, 2 of the Penguin RC teammates. When it comes to the GT3s, you're talking 2 of the 4 being a part of the same organization. Christian Yunwall technically on his own for the team's sake, as off in the back goes one more spin with the green Too Fast racing machine. That's Gary Freeman going around again. That leads to question, how do you battle as teammates knowing you want the championship, but it only can be one of you as a team?
Well, you bring up a really good point. So if they're on the same team, I bet you they're on the same radio channels, probably in the same Discord room. That means right now, they probably know, Cody knows that Ray is not going to poke the nose out and make it pass. And look at that, just as I say that, Ray Kingsbury goes up the inside here in turn number 3. He wants the lead from his teammate of Cody Cosgrove. So, hey, the lead, the fight is on.
And these are the 2 Ferraris up front. Kevin Fanning, the highest running Porsche in the series. Still looking to try and close his way back up, but needs about 2 seconds. So up in front, Ray Kingsbury looking to try and set away. And for Ray Kingsbury throughout the season, when looking at the breakdown, he's been leading much of the way this season, except for the fact that Kevin Fanning's the main key of consistency. When it comes to Kingsbury, he's had a lot of good performances, but a lot of up and downs. For example, round 5, only 20-something odd points in the first sprint. Compare that to Kevin Fanning in a lot of these races. He's nearly doubling up on some of the points when Kingsbury struggles.
Sure, if we look at kind of the trends of how the season goes, yeah, you could definitely point at Ray Kingsbury and say, are you going to have a good day? Or are you going to have a bad day? Because that could be how your championship decides itself here on the final round. But Justin, I'm seeing the performance on the track. It seems like Ray has put in a lot of practice time. Same with Cody out here. And both of these Ferraris, they look pretty hooked up as we're going side by side a little bit further in the back of the pack. This is Brian Sohn going up the inside of Daniel Coletta in turn number 1 here. He is going to get that pass done, and that is actually for the GT3 lead there. Daniel Coletta is in the number 9 car, while Brian Sohn is in the standard GT3 Pro class.
So for now, that shuffles things back for Coletta. Keep in mind, Brokaw's in a very comfortable spot in terms of the AM points as talked about. Essentially, in his case, he has to keep it clean. It should be able to lock things up with Coletta unless things go sideways, so to speak. Keep in mind, coming into today, we mentioned Brokaw's point total 404, 350 for Daniel Coletta. It's not a full given, but it's just about a given if you survive.
And what we've got on the racetrack for the first time here is the interclass traffic. We're seeing the GTP cars. This is Blake Reynolds as well as Brandon Lambert. They are battling for the overall lead. They're making their way through the GT3 field right now.
So the first time having traffic means more squabbling amongst the teammates. Lambert up the right side. Looking ascended, a squeeze to push Reynolds off the track. Now they scrape and make contact. Reynolds with the speed on the outside, able to survive and get on through as they head off to Niki Lauda.
We're coming up on halfway through this sprint race, but something about those final 2 corners, I mean, Justin, you've driven this track plenty. If you get pushed out too far, you can actually get that time penalty, the slowdown penalty.
Yes, especially that final corner. There is the potential of a slowdown of a couple seconds if you go across those curbs, and in turn, it's a big advantage because technically if you try and full throttle it, you can see where you can get a slowdown penalty because you can save 3 seconds if you were to just cut it. Now, I'm not recommending cut it.
I wouldn't either, but sometimes in the case of what we just saw, when you're too wide battling and you get hip checked out there, you don't have like kind of a choice in the matter some of the time. So I think if you're Brandon Lambert or Blake Reynolds, you just have to be smart about where you're positioning the car, especially as you're navigating your way through the slower GT3 cars, through these faster sweeper corners. You can go around the outside, but it sets it up once again for side-by-side.
Or pokes. Not even get alongside. Ray Kingsbury and Cody Cosgrove's battle is next up for the traffic. They both move to the left side to keep out of the way. Christian Yunwall, speaking of slowdowns, just got one in the final section. That just cost him some time to Fanning. Had been closing in as well, hence why you may notice that. So all the GT3s are lapped with 10 minutes to go in the sprint. And now here's a look at your GT3 leaders. Cody Cosgrove continuing to just play patiently and save behind his teammate.
I think he even gave him a little bit of a nudge coming out of turn one, some Ferraris bump drafting. So I believe that's Kieran Forrest making his way around in that Porsche GTP. But one thing is for sure, Cody versus Ray, who is going to come out? Because it seems like these two Ferraris have a little bit more pace than what Kevin Fanning has back there in the third place position.
Yeah, keep in mind the average pace when looking at the data, up to 0.3 quicker these two are compared to what Kevin Fanning's running. And there was some conversation about the strengths and weaknesses of the manufacturers. Interesting enough, it also came up especially for the GTPs with the power we're seeing already from some of the Acuras.
There's always going to be horses for courses, and I think throughout the season, sure, you might go to a track and be like, oh man, my car is hooked up, the gear ratios work just right, the speeds of the corners right in the power band. And then there's going to be some of the tracks that the car just doesn't vibe too well at. But overall, through the course of the season, the cars should be pretty well balanced.
Keep in mind, GTP, it's with the top three of the Cadillacs, but the series has run with the Ferrari this season, as it's been one of the main strengths throughout the season, consistency-wise. Bump drafting still for Cosgrove. About 8 minutes to go. So about estimated 6 to go at the stripe for these two. It almost gets the sense that Cosgrove is going to send it by the final lap. Just trying to keep him within arm's distance, if anything.
You kind of get that feeling too, huh? He's just kind of lurking back there in the mirror. However, Ray Kingsbury is doing exactly what he needs to do. Remember, Ray came in. He's the points leader, up 11 points on Cody Cosgrove, who's currently in second place. So, if Ray can hang on to this win here, all he is going to do is extend that points gap going into the feature. That would be a very, very good feeling for this number 25.
Remember the sprint, 30 points for the victory. With how close things are currently, that could be a big difference maker. Speaking of difference makers, Lambert starting to struggle in GTP up at the head of that field because Reynolds picked up time. Remember the time penalty part. We just had that happen at Lambert where he ran wide out of the final corner. And guess who's now to second on the send? Simply Cool Racing's John Marchbanks. He switched over to this class recently, and now he's up to second. He's been the fastest car on the track.
And he's in a Cadillac, so Cadillac taking the top two positions. And you mentioned kind of running away right now, Blake Reynolds, he's extending it. John Marchbanks has come through the field, so the number 30 leaving the Brandon Lambert Acura right now in third place. I'm curious if this is just due to setup, maybe like a sprint setup versus a later longer run setup. Maybe it's just fuel. I'm not sure, Justin.
And the interesting thing again is you're talking about a driver who basically swapped over in the recent weeks to this class when talking about this. Marchbanks, when looking at the point breakdown, did so in round 7. First time out in the sprint, finished off dead last, but once he got the feature together, finished second to Reynolds just in the last round. For reference, that last time out for the series was at Circuit of the Americas. Marchbanks seems to be clicking with this car even better than he was in the GT3, where he was around top 5 pace.
You mentioned clicking with the car. Sometimes you just have to get a feel for it, and you look at the lap times, Justin. Our leader, Blake Reynolds, last time by a 119.7, but this driver that we're talking about, that we're riding on board with, John Marchbanks, a 119.4. So he is the fastest car on the racetrack.
And with 5.5 minutes to go just about here, once they reach the end of this sector, could make things very interesting. Remember, Reynolds hasn't made too many mistakes this race, though. That's going to be the big thing in terms of providing pressure. You can see right now Reynolds able to pick up a bit of time heading to the final corners once again. So now, keep in mind, Coletta's still leading GT3M as well in this, Joey. For the most part, things have stayed clean once again today. The only major issue has been for Stoltz. Well, I say that, and you have a driver without a front clip.
I'm trying to see, I believe...
That's Coletta. That's your AM leader without a front clip. What just happened to the AM leader?
I do not know. I will have to go back and look, because really what had drawn my attention was the battle for third place in AM, because it had changed hands quite a few times between Tim Brokaw, Brian Asta, and Kevin Bogart. But this is your AM leader in the black Ferrari with no front end on it. I'm going to watch to see what the lap times are going to be for this car as he comes around, because his last lap time, a 132.1, doesn't seem to be affecting him at all.
I think I found it on lap 7, turn 3. Remember how he was falling behind Brian Son? And remember, this is a car now with the new damage model since the last time we seen things when it comes to this series on FTFGG. Which means, say you lick the stamp and send it into, I don't know, a back bumper. You might lose a front bumper. Somehow, he's still the fastest damn driver without a front clip.
Yeah, that one's a little bit silly there, losing the entire front end. So if you were the driver of that, I wouldn't think that I've lost the entire front end off of the thing. So I think that explains his pace. It hasn't fallen off at all, because I don't think he realizes he's got a missing front end.
I think he's about to realize something's up, because he just lost 3/10 to Tim Brokaw. And with under 4 minutes to go, Brokaw is almost, if just about, in drafting distance. So Brokaw has a chance to get the top spot in AM at least, if he continues to chip away for a couple more laps.
Just have to see how it goes, and remember, passing is something totally different. However, in iRacing, if you don't have that bodywork, if you have damage, it is definitely going to be suffering on the top end. And I would expect it's got a tremendous amount of understeer through this back half of the track, where you have a lot of these longer sweeping corners. If you don't have a splitter on the front end, not making any front end downforce, I would just expect those front tires to be screaming, trying to find any sort of grip they can.
So now, keep in mind, expect this to be, for these drivers, 2 laps to go based on the estimates. The AM lead could be interesting. The Pro lead expected to definitely be interesting with Crossgrove in the wings. Marchbanks is making things interesting just behind him in Prototype, because he's now within 6/10 in the middle of the AM battle. And he spins it! Marchbanks spins it out, able to save it away from the wall, but there goes his chance to battle for the win in the sprint race.
Brandon Lambert goes around the inside, and now Marchbanks is going to be just in front of David Coletta. Go ahead.
What? Wow, and Reynolds never goes one, and now Marchbanks gets turned.
That was off the nose of Daniel Coletta. That was an interesting interclass situation there, and sometimes the cars just need their own lane to accelerate. John Marchbanks spun around the front end of a GT3.
A lot happening there, as Marchbanks now has a problem trying to get the car back going, and another spin. Kieran Forrest is now spun it out, and another in the sand trap. This is getting wild to end the race, to say the very least. And oh, by the way, the AM class lead is down to 5 car lengths. And now Marchbanks has just punted into the back of Coletta's car.
Very interesting turn of events. You see Marchbanks now
Uh-oh.
trying to get going. Oh,
Coletta's
no.
now broken the suspension from the hit. He slams the wall. Into the lead goes Brokaw. Oh, and there's 1 minute to go.
Yep. It is all unfolded. You had mentioned everybody was playing nice. The attrition, it really hadn't set in yet. So our new AM leader, Tim Brokaw, right here in the number 111 Porsche rounds, turn 1, should be the final lap for him.
So that got very wild, very quickly, to say the very least. Reynolds leading now by 1.3 seconds over Lambert in all this. Marchbanks has fallen back to 4th. On the bright side, Ray Kingsbury, Cody Cosgrove are still close. So things could get interesting for that side. But for Blake Reynolds, this was not an easy one, to say the very least. Consistency wins championships, and he seems very consistent on the track.
Sometimes that's all you got to do. But Justin, it seems like he's got a big enough gap. Just got to be careful around this GT3 car, and that will be the checkered flag for Blake Reynolds here on the first race.
Out of the final corner, there it is on the pylon. Reynolds gets the job done and gets himself a dub in the sprint race today. Ray Kingsbury and Cody Cosgrove are still racing, though, because keep in mind they were in front of your GTP leader. So we'll see how they fight it out here, all while Brokaw already has the AM lead as he was lapped by the GTP leader before the end of this one.
A great drive for the number 111. It kind of fell in his lap with some of those late race incidents with Daniel Coletta, but hey, the 111 picking up the GT3 AM win, and here is Ray Kingsbury continuing to lead over Cody Cosgrove. I really thought that the move was going to happen in turn 3 because Cody had literally been pushing this other Ferrari for multiple laps, but he couldn't just find the momentum that he needed here on the final lap.
Still has a few more corners to try and pressurize something. Cosgrove goes a little deeper on the brakes. Across the curbing, clattering tight to the right. Not able to fully close up. One more sector to go. Ray Kingsbury looks to get himself the victory in the sprint, get himself a buffer heading to the final race of the campaign. Takes a little bit sharp inside. Cosgrove having a good run on the draft. Checker flag waves for the full race. Ray Kingsbury holds off Cody Cosgrove, and they finish out the GT3 Pro Class. Well, that was an exciting one, to say the very least. Your thoughts on that one, Joey?
It started out well-mannered, right? We were all kind of surprised, saying, hey, everything is looking really, really nice out here. And then, what was it, about 2.5, maybe 3 minutes left in that race? It's like somebody just threw in some spices into this race, and it all boiled over. And, yeah, I'm not sure really what to think of kind of the final ending with the intermixed traffic, the incidents that were going on. But one thing's for sure, we get to do it all over again, and we get to add pit stops.
So drivers have a few minutes to be able to sort themselves out. Let's take a look at the unofficial race results. Blake Reynolds getting the dub by about 6/10 at the stripe. Matt Kingsbury very quietly throughout the chaos for everyone else in his class went to 3rd. Marchbanks had a chance for the lead, ended up hitting the back of a couple cars. Then Forrest and Wentz rounded out the respective GTP class. Ray Kingsbury picked up the win over Cody Cosgrove. They were the last on their respective lap in this one. Fanning and Yunwall were 2 laps down to the GTP leader, but finished 3rd and 4th. Son, last in the Pro Class. Brokaw, after a chaotic finish to AM, got the win there. Brian Ansta, along with Ondo, Freeman, Bogart, and Coletta rounding out that run. Stoltz, having internet issues, says, and I quote, not happy with his internet provider, to paraphrase at the same time. So, we'll take a bit of a break. When we come back, we'll see how things play out for the feature. 50 minutes on the board when we come back here from Spielberg. Welcome back to coverage of SimCar and Penguin RC Simulation Grand Am Series here on FTFTG. Just Prince Joey Atterbury alongside Jack Johnson producing as we get ready for the final race of the season. So far, it's been an interesting day to say the very least, and currently the unofficial point tallies continue to get calculated here. Keep in mind with that dub, Ray Kingsbury getting a bit of a cushion. How about 6 points over Kevin Fanning per the mathematician Joey Atterbury?
Yes, the mathematician over here. However, I think the big story there, he's got 7 or 6 points over Kevin Fanning. It was Cody Crosgrove that was attached to the rear bumper of Ray Kingsbury that entire race. So I have a feeling if we have a repeat of the raw speed, the pace out there, I think that Ray Kingsbury is kind of sitting in the catbird seat. He's got the most advantageous position. All he's got to kind of do is keep it clean on the racetrack for all 50 minutes, which we saw at the end of the 20-minute sprint. It can be a challenge in itself.
That's an understatement of what we may see here over the course of 50 minutes. Keep in mind, drivers are expected to pit about 30 minutes in or so. There is a fuel limit for these teams and the respective cars. For reference, about 50% for the GT3s. About 15 gallons was the number from the GTP side. So in turn, as these drivers get about 4.5 minutes to try to adjust here for this final race, knowing the championship complexion, especially in the GT3 side, how do you try and adjust things? Or rather, try and mentally adjust things? Because Crosgrove did mostly what he did except outscore Ray Kingsbury. Needed to do is the better phrasing. Kevin Fanning, that was not the way Kevin Fanning needed to do, with him losing touch of the draft in 3 laps.
Well, let's take one at a time here. I think if you're Cody Crosgrove, you need to go out there and do exactly what you did in the sprint race. You need to show up and lay down that speed, meaning you need to go out there and fight for the win. You have the pace for it. You just finished in 2nd place right off of the bumper of the championship leader. So if you go out there and do exactly what you just did, hey, if Ray has a bad race, if he has some bad luck, you are doing what you need to do to win that championship. Now, if you're Kevin Fanning, you look at what you just did in that 20-minute and you kind of are searching, scratching your head saying, where am I going to find this pace to go catch our overall leader? I think now is on the start. You have to be really aggressive, try to make up some of that track position, maybe in turn 1, turn 3. However, you can't go knocking people out of the way. You have to come up with a different way to get that track position. Maybe it's in those pit stops that we were alluding to.
And keep in mind, you mentioned the point, especially when it comes to, say, for Kevin Fanning, with 6 points back. Keep in mind the difference between 1st and 2nd, 6 points, 60 to 54 for reference in the feature. Guess who has the tiebreaker, if that becomes the case? Kevin Fanning, since he's got already 2 sprint wins. In total, 1 win from an endurance for Ray Kingsbury, yes. But the tiebreaker from the first layer is the win mark. So if they end up being tied, Fanning has the tiebreaker in this situation. Now, here's the thing. If both of them have troubles, Christian Yunwall has the most wins for much of the season, mind you. But he has the most ground to make up in all that situation.
Christian Youngwall is down 18 points to my math right now, so he would have to win this race, and then you're right, everybody else would have to have trouble in order for him to kind of make up those points there. Anything is certainly possible. I think if you're strapping yourself into your sim rig over here with about a minute and a half left in practice, you just got to do what you can. But you brought up a really interesting point, Justin, just with 6 points separating first and second. Wouldn't that be a little bit more kind of enticement for these teammates of Ray and Cody to work together in practice, really get up to speed so that way they can secure those top 2 positions, try to help secure whatever championship points they really can.
And for reference, when it comes to GTP side, more time in case those are curious on that calculation, Reynolds is basically doing what he needs to do to win a championship with how many races he's won. Remember, he's just about swept the season when it comes to the races he started in. Keyword started in, since he missed round 4 of the season, which was 2 total races. So we're just about set to go. 1 minute until the warm-up's complete for the feature race, the final feature of the season. Your keys to get the feature race done, and done right, if you want to finish off the season on a bright side and a high note.
Got to stay clean, right? Can't be knocking yourself into any of the other competitors. We saw it in the sprint race. John Marchbanks got tangled up with some GT3 cars, whether he left room or the GT3 car turned him around. Didn't matter because there was a second incident that really took them both out of there. So rule number 1, stay clean. Do what you can to avoid everybody else's mess. The other one, we haven't seen any pit stops yet as we get a Cadillac going in reverse around the track right now.
What?
Yeah, it's just they're having some fun out there. I applaud this effort right now. But I was going to mention pit road entry. It is very, very fast here at the Red Bull Ring. If you haven't practiced it, you can actually lose a lot of time compared to the other competitors.
So Blake Reynolds is bored and ready for the race, I see. As everyone helps him congratulate him on driving 3/4 of a lap backwards. Let's see if he can run the laps forwards now in the feature. Once again, remember, it's in the same order from the previous race in that of the sprint. So it's Reynolds, Lambert, Kingsbury, Marchbanks in the first 4 spots for GTP. Matt Kingsbury, for reference, in 3rd. Kieran Forrest and Chris Wetz round out the field. Then your top 10 overall is rounded out as such. Ray Kingsbury, Cody Cosgrove, Kevin Fanning, Christian Youngwall in the battle for GT3, Joey.
Then in the remaining spots, we got Brian Son in 11th overall. Tim Brokaw is going to be starting on your GT3 AM pole sitting position. Brian Aston next to him. Josh Ondu in 14th. Gary Freeman 15th overall. Kevin Bogart 16th. And Daniel Coletta will be rounding out the 17 cars taking the track.
And Josh Stoltz, once again, we received word that he's been having technical issues due to service provider problems. Made a reference to the office space that involves a router and a baseball bat. If you know, you know. Who do you think's got the wins down here for this feature?
You know, it's tough to vote against Blake Reynolds right now. He seemed to have a good leg up on everybody. But in terms of GT3, I'm going to go with Ray Kingsbury. It kind of seems a little hokey-pokey picking the top dogs, but that's what I'm going with.
It's time for the final feature of the year. It's Lambert alongside Reynolds. 50 minutes on the board. Green flags out. Racing once more in Spielberg. And Reynolds with a clean start heading to Niki Lauda. Remember, he took the lead off the squeeze to start the race. They crash behind this time. Matt Kingsbury punches Marchbanks wide. They avoid major contact, but Lambert makes the outside work as the GT3s race it out at the front stretch.
And it once again is Ray Kingsbury getting the nice hole shot on the pole position. Going to sweep around the outside of turn 1. Cody Cosgrove tucked into 2nd place. But there I see Tim Brokaw in that 111, your GT3 AM leader. He's moved all the way up into that 3rd place position. So Kevin Fanning falling back to 4th as they go up towards turn number 3 for the first time. A terrible start, not what the number 44 needed.
Not at all with how things have played out so far tonight. Fanning already dropping to 10th overall behind his AM competitor in Brokaw. And in turn, going to need a lot of speed to be able to try and close up to the top two, already running away from Brokaw and company. In turn, lots of off tracks, meaning lots of drivers in that sequence. It should be worth noting, Joey, getting course cut penalties. Already expected to be huge now to start this one. Both Reynolds and Lambert in GTP just had it in the final corner.
It's so tough here as we get back to the GTP lead coming up over turn one. They just completed the first lap, and if you get that slowdown on the first lap, which was what you were talking about, it's an extended slowdown time period where you just feel like you're crawling. How come I haven't given this time back? And here you see them all stack up because of it.
Kieran Forrest able to take the lead, and as a result, Marchbanks moving up to second. Of note, Christian Yunwall is now out of the race, so take him out of the championship equation. He did not start this feature. He elected to pull out before the start of the race.
M11, I mean, yes, the time penalty is such a bummer on the first lap, but look at what it has done to our GTP field. That is Kieran Forrest leading the way in that number 42 Porsche. John Marchbanks, who had some troubles at the end of the sprint race, well, he's second in that blue Cadillac. And then comes your GTP leader in terms of your points championship, that number 66 of Blake Reynolds.
We'll see how they now race when they have traffic in front. Remember, Forrest had solid speed before mistakes. Marchbanks was quick on the long run. Chris Wetz and Matt Kingsbury also are in this draft. Everybody staying tightly together, at least for the early laps. So the interesting thing's going to be as well, as this night progresses, how do drivers like Marchbanks recover from mistakes? We're about to find out since he's wanting the lead already.
Got the slipstream going up towards turn number 3. This is probably your best passing opportunity, but you see Forrest kind of put the car right in the middle of the road, and now Lambert has spun it around. He just got on the brakes too hard, locked up the rear of the car to avoid running into the back of Reynolds.
Brandon Lambert in the final race of the season ends up locking up the brakes, avoids contact, yes, but he's now lost the entire pack. Now he needs a lot of luck to have a chance at the 66 of Reynolds, his teammate.
And you could definitely look at that and say that was a huge bummer for Brandon Lambert, but I am going to say great piece of driving because he didn't plow into Blake Reynolds right in front of him. He realized he was in too deep, and instead of just going straight forward, which is known as target fixation, he physically drove it off the left side of the racetrack to avoid everybody.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's the counterpoint of that is, if he tries to go full send, the whole field is probably losing their back bumpers and back wings. There's still time to recover with the speed. Remember, he was the fastest in practice in clean space. Now he's got some clean space while everyone else is in a choo-choo train. Let's take a look one more time.
This is the replay, and you see the closing right, and he was just going to impact that car right in front of him. He turned that car left to avoid any sort of crash, and I agree with you, but we're side by side. Actually, Marchbanks tried to make a move into turn 3, so here we go. Forrest on driver's left, Marchbanks on driver's right, headed down towards turn number 4.
Marchbanks got a little bit close for contact. Forrest able to avoid a rub, though, as Reynolds stays in third. So Marchbanks, after being so close to taking the lead in the sprint, now has the lead with the help of the track position for the feature. Now, Reynolds looking to try and find a way around Forrest because Forrest has lost half a second nearly in this past lap since the pass.
Seems like Forrest was really struggling with the dirty air as soon as Marchbanks got in front of him. And this is a problem with Josh Ondo, the number 19 Porsche. This looks to be at the top of turn number 1. Spun around. I also saw Kevin Bogart, Gary Freeman involved in this one a little bit further back, but the GT3 AM's definitely tossing it up.
So far, with how things have broken down, you see how things are for some of the drivers in the back. This is John Shondo, you mentioned. It's an interesting thing that I've noticed with some of those RD designed machines. if you look closely at some of them, as you see Ray Kingsbury now lead because of a time penalty, Cosgrove, that's the part of the reason there for the distance. Drivers like Kevin Fanning, like Brokaw, they added a design quirk since the last time we've seen them here in FTFGG. Instead of, drawing actual lines on your car in, say, Photoshop, why not just sketch-a-pad them onto the car?
Well, Justin, you ever grow up with an Etch-a-Sketch? Isn't that kind of similar?
Yeah. Who needs decals and parts of the car when you can just draw them on your drawing pad or your paper pad and scan them in?
So, I come from real-world motorsports, but one of the things that I love about sim racing, Justin, is the creativity aspect. And this is a perfect example of it. Where else can you do that other than right here at your computer, at your PC, being able to essentially design whatever the heck you want?
And the interesting thing is, throughout the season, too, there's been the quirks between these cars, not just color-wise. One of the races, Kevin Fanning, I believe, had an incident because if you look at his back bumper, they added one difference to his car, a Band-Aid to the left rear bumper that has the ouch and a wham bam comic book type on the back of his car. So just an interesting quirk for the final race, or at least the final stages of the season, for a team looking to have some fun.
So, I'm happy we are focused on this car right here of Kevin Fanning because, Justin, you were mentioning kind of the tiebreaker earlier. Well, Kevin Fanning is only -6 points to Ray Kingsbury, right? He is hunting down Cody Cosgrove. Cody had a tremendous sprint race, but he has lost the draft to Ray Kingsbury in front of him. So right now, that second to third place is closing in. And if Kevin Fanning can get by as we jump back to GTP lead, more stuff going by. But if Fanning can get by Cosgrove, it's that tiebreaker situation.
Exactly. It's going to take a bit of luck, to say the least, right now. But based on the traffic management, it may be a bit more than that. A lot of weaving and bobbling among some of these cars. Prototypes in the backpack going 2 and 3 wide around some of the drivers. The leaders nearly did the same with some of the lappers. Once this battle, you have Forrest, you have Wetz. Lambert's also closing too. Matt Kingsbury is trying to run away from the battle of the green cars.
Well, we had watched Brandon Lambert kind of, oh, look at that, jumping up over the curb between Wetz and Forrest as they're battling for the 4th place position. But between the GT3s and everything else going on, Brandon Lambert has kind of revived his race. He is only 1.5 seconds back from Kieran Forrest and Chris Wetz, who we're watching.
And the more they run side by side, the more they potentially lose themselves some time on the racetrack in turn relative to Lambert. Wetz, though, able to hold on to the 71 and avoids the sand in turn on the pass on the outside line. So these drivers, again, were battling for 4th. They have reached a lot more traffic, like Son and company. The race leaders for GT3 give a little bit of a calm breathing space from this point.
I think those GT3 leaders are kind of thanking their lucky stars that they're not involved in a battle, because these GTP cars are definitely involved in these kind of packed battles right now. You want to make sure you leave as much room as possible, as you see John Marchbanks just using the entire track, trying to carry whatever speed he can, entry, apex, exit.
And Marchbanks all over the racetrack in some of these various groups at this point. Surprised he hasn't picked up some near time penalties with how much space he's using in some of these corner entries at the very edge of the special rules to the track.
I think I look at the driving style as Blake Reynolds pokes his nose down. He's got the driver's right side of the track, but this is the wrong area that you want to be in. Marchbanks is going to be on the left side. He's got the shorter way around, but look at Blake Reynolds hanging tough on the outside. He's going to have to do it one more time before the switchback.
Simply Kawoka on the left side. Reynolds on the right makes it stick. Marchbanks after the switch goes for the switch back. After the second to last corner. Remember, there's been near contact here before this race. Now Reynolds forced wide, but avoids the slowdown. He barely kept his right sides on the curbing.
Blake Reynolds showing the Darlington line, works around the Red Bull ring, just hang it out around the top, but here comes Marchbanks. He is off the track. I wonder if he's going to get a slowdown penalty. Yes, he's going to have to lift off the gas.
Marchbanks is not really lifting, though. He's going to have to work in quickly here because, remember, he does have some time to do it. He might lose the draft here with how much time he's having to stop. He's still not cleared it.
You saw him
now
just
he does.
trying to, yeah, he just was trying to go wide, try to bleed that slowdown time as efficiently as possible. And I think he did a really good job about it, Justin. He's only about 0.6 behind the leader.
Still within drafting distance. It could have been much worse depending on how things broke down there. Marchbanks absolutely making things interesting after the switchover. Keep in mind, the green light for fuel expected to open in about 8 to 10 minutes. So we are close to that. GT3, battle for third, is going to be interesting a bit. You have teammates that are close there in that class. You also have a lot of the AM drivers battling for third in their own right. How about Bogart trying to hold on to the 69?
It's pretty impressive right now. Kevin Bogart, Brian Asta, Gary Freeman, these are the 3 cars, and they are all battling for what is the 2nd place in that GT3 AM. So if you are the caboose on this train, you are the one that is not going to be spraying the champagne at the end of this. This will be a fight.
Yeah, these drivers look and try and find as much as possible at the rate things are going here. But it's the final race of the season. Why not? Try and see if you have the speed, especially if you're too fast racing. And when it comes to what we've seen from Bogart, he's been the fastest of the team in the races they've made as an organization when you look at the point breakdown.
And he's actually the one that has gone up the 2 positions so far when we compare these 3 cars. So I think Kevin Bogart right here in this number 69 white and red Porsche, if he can break that draft to Brian Asta in that black Ferrari behind him, that is exactly what he needs to do for his race, especially considering those pit stops. We still have yet to see those. We're about 15 minutes or so, maybe 20 minutes from them.
So in turn, that's in reference, keep in mind too, do you risk the heavy car or do you risk waiting until the edge of the tank to get the lighter car? Normally it's been the lighter car, because usually a lighter car is a faster car if you know how to drive on the old tires. That's been a big difference in some races where if you don't have experience being able to push with a lighter car to maximize the speed, we've seen drivers lose a lot of pace as tires wear, even in a one stint.
I think you explained it great there, is that the car doesn't actually lose pace. It just drives a little bit differently, and you have to understand how to drive that car, because when you do get light on the fuel, you get light on that weight. Less weight on the race car means it accelerates faster, it stops better, it turns better. So yeah, I think that if you can manage those older tires, you need to stretch it as far as you can, because that means the car will just keep getting faster.
Take a look at one of the battles still involving prototypes. Brendan Lambert has zipped on by both the green cars. Forrest now in front of Wetz. Lambert, he's gained a couple seconds back. Problem is, he's still 6 to 7 seconds back of the race leaders.
I think it's held kind of neutral there for him. When he first spun, I was trying to check to see how much time he lost, and it was about that. It was about 5.5 to 6.5 seconds. So he's doing a good job as we get one of our GT3 competitors. This is Brian Asta. This was that black Ferrari involved in that GT3 AM podium fight. Unfortunately, spinning it around, looks like at the top of the turn 3 hill.
Looking at how this plays out. It's been an interesting day for some of these drivers, yes, but you have to give credit to some of those battling hard, like Chris Wetz. We mentioned Forrest was charging up front in the sprint at least. Wetz was very quiet, and they're very similarly colored machines. They're near identical, the same color of green. And part of me wonders, okay, in theory, you have the same colored car in front of me. I want to be the first of those, so I have that driver behind me.
Well, not even the same color, but we look at the manufacturers, right? These are the two Porsches that are in GTP here in this Red Bull Ring race for SimCar. And you want to be the first of the manufacturers. So, yeah, you want to finish ahead. Kieran Forrest currently in that 5th place position. Chris Wetz giving chase in 6th. But I think when you look at just the group of GTPs, these Porsches seem pretty identical on pace.
Yeah, and that was a concern for some talking through before today, was how the pace was going to be for this car. And the Porsches were put on the lower end of that conversation for the GTP. It's been interesting, though, how much expansion there's been, especially this year in this class, to get that manufacturer representation. Even towards the start of the new iRacing season, you've seen some of the trends for next season onward to set the foundation for the future classes on the iRacing service.
I love it. I think it's fantastic. These prototypes are the biggest, baddest, hottest road race cars in the world right now. And remember, it's not just here in North America that we get to see them, but they go to Le Mans, they travel the WEC schedule, albeit a slightly different rule set. They are pretty much dang near identical underneath. And going around some more GT3 cars, these two get stacked up a little. But the big picture of the GTP class, Justin, not only do we have the 4 manufacturers here in iRacing, but Lamborghini is in there, Ferrari is joining the party. I can't wait to see what actually comes to the service in the future, too.
And in turn, how drivers race it out. Keep in mind that it's actually a decent time to mention there is plans to have a 2.4-hour race here on FDFGG through SimCar in the next month or so. And that should be an interesting one, because a lot of drivers have been excited to see how that plays out here on the channel in about a month's time or so.
And it'll be really cool to see 2.4 hours. We're only doing 50 minutes here, so 2.4 hours is pretty much an identical replicate of the WeatherTech, the IMSA WeatherTech races, as this is our lead battle. Blake Reynolds, ever since he got around John Marchbanks, well, guess what? That purple, or I should say blue Cadillac hasn't given up. I've actually seen him go side by side into turn 3 a couple times, but just excellent defense from the number 66, our leader, every single lap.
It's been that type of season. It's been that type of driving to be expected when it comes to Blake Reynolds. Marchbanks, though, we've seen he's not afraid to lick the stamp, send it, knock over the mailbox, knock over every single mailbox nearby, and hope he sticks it at the same time. Lap traffic ahead is about to make this interesting. That's Brian Son, who looks to the left side and moves out of the way.
I agree with you, Justin. I think that John Marchbanks has been the most aggressive driver here tonight, so always keep an eye on that blue Cadillac. But look at what has happened. Matt Kingsbury, the number 21 car, he's been laying down 119s the last few laps, and he's actually reeled in second place. Watch out, John Marchbanks. You got a BMW on your tail.
And now this is the first time in a while we've seen the pressure on for second in the class, really. Kingsbury nearly went wide, so the pressure now dissipates, but you have to wonder what's going on with the speed here. Remember, Reynolds had a big cushion here. He did lose 4/10 last time, but his average pace has been 2 to 3 tenths slower. You have to wonder, has he been saving and conserving the energy and the fuel?
It's another great point there, and we are approaching that halfway through. We've only done about 20 minutes so far. However, if you're trying to come up with some sort of strategy, I think the early pit window, it can possibly be open. So if you're looking at the horizon and you see a ton of GT3 cars that are going to check you up, it might be enticing to come down pit road early, get that stop done with.
We are in the window, and speaking of which, there's one call. That's Chris Wetz electing to come in and top off to be able to close out the season. We've had trouble in turn 3 with the GTP leaders again. Marchbanks locked up the brakes, nearly missed the corner again, and he nearly got to the back end of Reynolds. Now instead he has to hold off Matt Kingsbury after losing another near second.
I think he got really lucky because he did not receive any sort of time penalty that I saw from that one. I actually see Brandon Lambert has a time penalty from running wide, but he just served that, so no harm, no foul there. But we haven't talked about Matt Kingsbury too much. We haven't talked about the BMW in GTP so much. It's really been the Cadillac, the Porsche, and even the Acura so far up front. So I wonder if that BMW may be showing its legs on the longer side of the stints.
So you have local racing machines closing up against each other. They both started out the season in Ferraris before moving to this class. Now it's Kingsbury in the conversation for the class lead in GTP. He looks to the back of Blake Reynolds. He closes up to a car length. Now he's on the prowl. He looks quicker on the long run. Marchbanks looks to be struggling at the end of this run.
Going up towards turn number 3, a huge passing opportunity. The BMW, oh, so squiggly on the inside there. You could see Matt Kingsbury just struggling for any sort of traction. Actually loses a little bit of ground. Now it's John Marchbanks that's going to be on the attack for that position number 2. Justin, something I've noticed, our leader, Blake Reynolds, gets the exit of turn number 3 dang near perfect every single time. He squares it up. He stands on the gas, and all of a sudden that Cadillac just launches out of there.
And again, he has a lot of experience too. Remember, I'm not just talking about NASCAR Nitro Circuits. This big test, Matt Kingsbury goes for a ride in the sand. He loses control a touch, and in turn that touch is enough to lose it a full bit.
Brandon Lambert takes advantage of Matt Kingsbury's mistake, so the BMW is now back on the racetrack but falls down to the 4th place position. So Brandon Lambert, the number 46 car, who was last in GTP just a few laps into this race, going off in turn number 3, finds himself back on the podium.
And a good comeback for Lambert, now within 4 seconds of the race leaders, with how it's not just been about the saving but the squabbling going on behind Reynolds, if anything. We'll see how the recovery now goes. Keep in mind that the pit marks, as we said, are open. If you do the math, that window, about 6 minutes to go at the latest for these drivers based on the projections for the GTPs more so here today. Gary Freeman, looks like he tried to go somewhere, and that somewhere wasn't originally the pits, but now it is.
We talked about the keys to the race before we started this green flag, and what did I say? That pit road entry, it is extremely fast, and if you have not practiced it, it can definitely catch you out. I'm not sure if that's exactly what happened to Gary Freeman here, but the 666 making his pit stop.
Again, one of the crossovers from Beam NG and its sim racing community. Blake Reynolds zips on by. He still leads by 1.3 seconds with about 25 minutes to go this time by. So as you take a look at Lambert and company here, this allows him the chance to be able to focus a little bit. He has someone potential to work with here. They have worked together in the past, him and Matt Kingsbury, or at least a Kingsbury. Does that come to favor him, especially since these two are linking up and closing in together now?
I think at this point in the race, Justin, you have to scrap, right? You're coming up to your pit stop. You realize you're getting light on fuel. Are you going to scrap in terms of the overcut, the undercut, or on the track? That's yet to be determined, but I think right now you got to fight for every single inch because it can be extremely valuable once that pit stop cycle is done.
And especially how much time you spend in the box could be a huge part of things too, obviously, because if you burn a ton of fuel getting there, well, you're going to spend an extra couple seconds in the box. It's not as simple as just look at the fuel calculator and go from there. Some drivers will go by the number that they have from the practice instead of the auto fuel, because it's not that simple unless you're at a super speedway.
Another factor to think about this is that if you are saving fuel here in this first stint, right, well, that calculator is basing it off of what you are running. And if you don't put enough fuel in the car, and all of a sudden you are running out with half a lap left when you are just running it on the ragged edge for the final 20 minutes of the race, you look pretty silly out there.
More traffic to deal with, by the way. See Marshbanks dealing with some of the traffic with Brian Aston and company. Expect a couple more laps for them to stretch it out. For reference, the GT3 leaders have really spread out. Ray Kingsbury's in the driver's seat for that championship by nearly 2 seconds. So while Cosgrove has closed up that gap a little bit, Ray Kingsbury showcased the speed in the sprint race. He really increased it.
I think Cody Cosgrove has done a tremendous job to kind of revive his early mistake. He's only about 1.5, 1.7 seconds back from our leader who we're looking at right here. So these are the two Ferraris that really ran away in that 20-minute sprint race. And now that things have settled down, you know, we're past halfway here in the 50-minute race. It seems to be a repeat out there. They just needed to take a deep breath, and it's Ray Kingsbury leading over Cody Cosgrove. Kevin Fanning is your closest championship competitor, but you got to go about 6 seconds back to go find that Porsche.
Pit stops, by the way, underway for Josh Ondu as well. You Pro and Matt Kingsbury, Brian Son has already elected to come in for their service as well. So the whole wave of pit stops expect to be very busy in this next time by. Speaking of which, there's one in the backdrop. It's Cody Cosgrove going for the undercut. He got within 2 seconds. In fact, he gained a second technically on the access road.
We'll have to wait and see exactly how long this fill time is, because Ray Kingsbury is opting to go one more lap at least here on his tank. Kevin Fanning drives right on by. So if we technically do the math in the middle of this pit stop cycle, Kevin Fanning right now in a good position. That puts the pressure on Ray Kingsbury. You gotta nail your pit stop. Don't speed. Don't take any chances or unnecessary risks.
17 seconds in the box is the total. Keep that in mind as Ray Kingsbury goes around as the leader and one of few to pit yet. See the traffic blend. Amont still zipping by. That is Marshbanks, who is yet to come down. Lambert is within his draft. As a matter of fact, Daniel Coletta is now the wedge between Marshbanks that just checked up these cars right in front of Cosgrove.
Exactly how it's all going to play out here. Daniel Coletta, remember, he did not have the best of that first 20-minute race. He had the front end clip, then he had the incident with Marchbanks, then a second incident with Marchbanks. So Daniel Coletta right now has a little bit of a mirror full of Cody Cosgrove, who had just come out of the pits. Be interesting to see if this number 9 plays nicely with another Ferrari, because if he doesn't, Cody Cosgrove is actually going to lose important time. That's going to be chasing down this car right here, Ray Kingsbury, who comes into pit lane.
Up on the jacks, remember, 17 seconds the pit mark. Kevin Fanning also coming in this time. Expect most of the field in fact, this time, Blake Reynolds is also in. The battle for GT3's final win of the season is on. Ray Kingsbury is off the jacks. For Ray Kingsbury, 17.5 seconds. Where is Cody Cosgrove? Cosgrove not going to get there. He's coming out of Nicky Lauda. Ray Kingsbury holds on by about a second, if that.
Yeah, but it's actually a little bit closer than what it was. It was about 1.5, 1.7 seconds before. Now it's down to 1.1 seconds. We'll see if Cody Cosgrove can be in the groove with a little bit of a warmer tire here. And remember, Ray Kingsbury just kind of got to get used to that full tank of gas as we watch one of the GTP cars make his way through.
Bad news, Matt Kingsbury out of the race due to a software crash. As in, his sim crash, meaning he's no longer in the race. Matt Kingsbury now out of contention in GTP after being the first to pit in the class. Reynolds just completed his service. 32 seconds is the cushion between him and Marshbanks, with the 30 still going, an extra couple.
Well, and also the 46 Brandon Lambert, that is the driver there. He is chasing John Marchbanks. He's less than a second behind our GTP leader. So looks like everything is starting to close in as these pit stop cycles are kind of making their way through. This is Ray Kingsbury. He will continue to lead that GT3 class. Cody Crosgrove, though, with the undercut, he didn't get the position, although he did put himself in that draft range. And Justin, here at Red Bull Ring, sometimes that's all you need is to kind of sniff that slipstream.
Crossgrove's now sniffing it. He looks to follow the scent all the way to the bumper of Ray Kingsbury. Ray has had a big cushion since one of the slowdowns early. Crossgrove lost a couple seconds from it. It's taken about 25 minutes to get back in drafting distance. Now with 18 minutes to go, Crossgrove looks to try and see if he can control his destiny and get himself in front of Ray Kingsbury to make things interesting. Remember, Crossgrove was 14 points back on the estimate before this final race of the season. It's going to be close, but he needs some luck to win the title. He can still fight at least for the win.
Well, and remember, these two are teammates, and I wonder how good of friends they are. Because, Justin, if Cody Crosgrove goes up there and passes Ray Kingsbury, well, guess what that point differential would be back to Kevin Fanning? All of a sudden, 4 points, it would swing in the favor of Kevin Fanning. So I wonder, is there some team radios going on, or is it going to be gloves off, fight for the win, and then the championship gets settled because of it?
Here's the thing, Fanning is 7 seconds back. That's not an easy task at this point, regardless of how that breaks down here. And for Fanning, he's got no help. If anything, he's losing time. He lost about nearly a half a second this lap.
He's got to get up there. He's got to get those points. And you're right, he's got to revive his race somehow. And the only way to do it is going to be a mistake from Ray Kingsbury. Cody Crosgrove can go up there and fight it all he wants to. But you're right, Ray is still in that kind of position where he controls his own destiny.
And by the way, give credit to both Marchbanks and Brandon Lambert in GTP to go back that way. Lambert just pit. Marchbanks just went another. Marchbanks somehow has extended the window by a whopping near 5 minutes, more than the estimate. He still likely has to come in for obvious reasons here, but this is going to be potentially the shortest pit stop in the field. Never mind, he just spun it.
Such a tough break there as you watch Marchbanks go up and over that big yellow exit curb there at turn number 3. We've actually seen that be a little bit of a danger area the entire night for John Marchbanks. Has a couple lockups going wide, and this time I think it cost him a little bit of time.
Marchbanks in turn from that, if you compare that to Reynolds, 6 seconds lost from the side slide. And now you could throw even the quick pit stop from getting him back up in front here, because that was the biggest mistake he could have made in this race. It's not the biggest he's made today, but it likely cost him the chance of the feature if he doesn't pick up the pace here again before the stop. And that's not easy with traffic.
It's tough, and oh, here comes Marchbanks right now. So you mentioned stretching it all the way on fuel. Well, it is empty. Got to come in, get that fuel tank filled, and we'll see where he cycles out. Blake Reynolds is going to be streaming by. Then it's about 6.5 seconds back to Brandon Lambert, who he was fighting with before that spin, and I expect him to come out probably about 3 seconds behind that number 46.
Force was able to also extend it there, but not in the conversation for the lead as Reynolds makes his way up the front straight away. Right now, the pit stop already 15 seconds. Marchbanks still not done. Reynolds to the lead. And Blake Reynolds with a massive cushion. Marchbanks loses a spot to Lambert as well. Lambert had a 19-second stop. Marchbanks did go 18 seconds. However, you factor the spin total, well, he would have been at least 2 seconds back of Reynolds. Reynolds has good pace. but he could have made things interesting if it wasn't for what happened on the in lap.
It's about limiting those mistakes, staying on the racetrack, and that is what it takes to be the champion out there. And right now, Blake Reynolds well on his way to claiming that points championship. Got 5.5 seconds ahead of Brandon Lambert. The few mistakes out of this car, John Marchbanks has made him fall all the way back there to third place, albeit a comfortable third. He's got about 12 seconds over that fourth place car of Chris Wetz.
Once again, in the conversation, if things boil over for a podium here, all with under 15 minutes to go, Blake Reynolds in the overall lead. And for Reynolds, he said it before today's race, sometimes he makes it hard himself to win his own championship. Remember, one of the main organizers for SimCar, part of its creation just about a couple years ago now. And tonight could get himself the GTP title to add to his long list of championship success, to the point where he's brought the team he represents with SimCar and with Penguin RC and with his various partners to series like IMSA Esports, the Invitational Series from the past month.
Remember, though, 12.5 minutes left still here, Justin. So despite the lead, despite the season so far, you still have to navigate a GTP car around the Red Bull Ring, which is no easy task. I know that the braking systems with their brake-by-wire can be pretty tricky at some points, as well as the deployment of their hybrid system. So even though the Blake Reynolds is looking in a very comfortable position, he just needs to stay on top of everything going on inside of that cockpit.
Still 9 estimated laps to go for reference in this race. Does have a couple more lap cars to deal with in the next few minutes and then can settle up fully. Of note, Cosgrove has not closed up to Ray in the GT3 lead. You see how that interval on that screen is 1 second as we still keep an eye on Blake Reynolds. Right now, for Ray Kingsbury, he's been right now in sole control of his championship destiny. Even if Cosgrove was to make the pass, the point difference between second and third is still 4 points. If anything, Kingsbury would win by 10 if things held firm.
You're right, he would definitely claim that championship. In order for Kevin Fanning to do anything about it, he's got to get up there and pass both of these cars. I just don't see it happening, especially with these two Ferraris. They've been on point in the sprint race. They haven't made any sort of mistakes here in the 40 minutes that they've been racing so far, or I should say 30 minutes so far. Got another 10 minutes left here, and just going to have to see how it all plays out. But Ray Kingsbury in control of his points championship destiny. Cody Cosgrove, though, still giving chase. I wonder how much pressure he's going to apply, because both of these cars, they've been so identical in pace. It's going to be tough to even get up there and pressure him.
And remember, we're discussing this with the various drivers, and in particular with Reynolds, about the point structure for the AM side. It was essentially if you start, you're good if you're Tim Brokaw. Tim Brokaw, currently leading in the AM class, kind of solidifies things for that 111. He's in 4th overall in the GT3s. He's done exactly what he needed to do in this round to get the championship, including be here, obviously, but also survive everything.
Doing a tremendous job in that number 111. You see Brian Son giving chase. He's that black Ferrari that's right behind him, but that is not actually for the AM class. Brian Son is in a different GT3 class, so no worries whatsoever there as we watch the GTP cars come and stream around. But Tim Brokaw is doing exactly what he needs to do, because remember, it was Gary Freeman, that 666 Porsche that had the early GT3 AM class lead, was doing a tremendous job, but then Gary Freeman ran into trouble, so now it's Tim Brokaw claiming that GT3 AM lead, leading it with another about 9 minutes left here in the race.
9 to go as there goes Marchbanks. And he's amongst those that have been the intriguing of the day, you can argue, because if you remove the mistakes, he probably wins both these races for GTP. Problem is, the mistakes, when he's made them, have been extremely big.
He's had good raw pace. He's also been probably the most aggressive driver on the racetrack. And when I think big picture, when he was racing with Blake Reynolds, it was just a matter of time until Blake Reynolds was able to kind of extend his lead, because you have to narrow down these mistakes. You have to limit all of these mistakes. And the less mistakes you make, the further forward you are in terms of that track position. Usually the smoother of these competitors, the more calm of the competitors, will prevail at the end of the longer races. However, it might not be because of the raw overall pace.
Down to the final 6 laps or so on the season, by the way. Again, it's been as good a season. And now, Cody Cosgrove looks to make it a good battle to close out GT3 Pro. This is the closest he's been in a while. He's still in drafting range. He's still not closed it, though, past about this point. Ray Kingsbury still keeping things at bay despite Cosgrove having a touch of slipstream.
And I cannot stress this enough between these two teammates. You cannot make contact. You cannot wreck each other, especially in some of these slower corners where you can come to a complete stop. Kevin Fanning is only 6 seconds behind in that Porsche. So if there is any sort of time slowdown, any sort of spin, you are putting the championship on very thin ice.
We'll see how this goes now. Brian Son, for reference, is still 4th in the Pro. It's been a quiet night for him to close out the season, the former AM champion. Under 7 to go as Ray Kingsbury got very close to the slowdown. They are very much pushing the very edge of that curbing. If they go any harder at this point in that corner, somebody's going to get a slowdown in this.
Look at those lap times. Ray Kingsbury, a 1:31.0, while Cody Cosgrove right behind, a 1:30.8. So that second Ferrari in line, definitely starting to hunt him down, trying to get in that slipstream. And the closer that he gets every single one of these straightaways, the more powerful that toe is. Then you can leapfrog out, make that lunge, make that send that you call it, Justin.
Now it's a half a second, just about the distance here. Cosgrove a little bit more deeper on brakes. Ray Kingsbury a little bit more slower but smoother for the exit.
This is tricky with this GTP car, going to separate the two. Not at all what Cody Cosgrove wanted to see, although it looks like he actually didn't lose too much time there. Ray Kingsbury also let that GTP sneak up the inside, so the fight between these two Ferraris, 5.5 minutes remaining left in the season, and Cody Cosgrove is closer than he has been all race. You see him even just kind of putting the nose inside of that right side mirror of Ray Kingsbury, presenting his car, saying, hey, I'm here.
Looking to try and get the run. Closest he's been in a long time. Marchbanks zips on by beforehand. Bit of a checkup from Ray Kingsbury. More sausage curb heading from him. Cosgrove looked for the lineup. 5 minutes to go in the season. About 4 minutes to decide it between these two. Cosgrove might have one, maybe two chances at the pace he's slowly clipping at. They do have interclass traffic ahead as well. And Josh Ondo, who's up the road.
I'm going to draw back on my memory here. In the sprint race, it was really Cody Cosgrove that had the run towards turn number 3. That's where I thought that he was a little bit stronger than Ray Kingsbury. And actually, we got a GTP car right off in front of him. That was John Marchbanks coming into contact with the GT3 car as well. So it could not even be between these two Ferraris. It could be because of another wild card out there.
So in turn, they were able to zip by there. Ondo able to keep going. Marshbanks does have a meatball flag from the contact and the rejoin in that corner. Turn 5. Ondo has no front clip. Ray Kingsbury trying to use him as slipstream though. Cosgrove lost time in the checkup to the incident. And now the 19 is not moving off the racing line yet. Ray Kingsbury looking to set it up. Blue flags pop up. Down to 3 laps to go in the season as there goes the lap car.
So that's Josh Ondo getting out of the way. Ray Kingsbury and Cody Cosgrove say, thank you very much. We would like to settle this out there on the racetrack. You see another GTP car lurking, although it should get by in the straight line here. Cody Cosgrove has to adjust, maybe not what he wanted to see. Still stays in that tow. 3 minutes remaining.
For the most part, not expecting traffic to come into play, maybe until the final lap. Forrest is the next closest prototype. Cosgrove, he's had some struggles in Sector 2 today. Can he overcome those to close this gap as much as he needs to for Ascend? Heading through Slosh Gold, nearly sent to the bumper, now heads up to Welch as he looks for the lineup.
Through turns number 6, 7, and 8, the fast sweeping corners here at the Red Bull Ring. Keep the Ferrari nice and tucked in. Yeah, more GTP problems right in front of them. They really got to narrow the entrance. Ray Kingsbury is able to sneak by. Cody Cosgrove is actually going to be the one that's more affected by it.
Cosgrove was forced to check up again. Ray Kingsbury able to take the outside line, heading to the final sector. More clipping in the grass. Chris Wetz goes very wide, clipping all the mowing of the lawns in front of him. Cosgrove just about goes wide. Cosgrove avoids the slowdown, coming up to the final 2 laps on the season for the GT3s. About 2 minutes to go on the clock. There's Forrest on the breakup. He parks it in front of Ray Kingsbury. Cosgrove looks for the line, can't get the draft. He was slower on exit despite that checkup.
It was not what Ray Kingsbury wanted to see, but he got a good enough exit, like you were saying, kind of give that stiff arm distance away from Cody Cosgrove. But look at how late on the brakes that white and gray Ferrari is. I really feel, Justin, if there's going to be a move for the lead, it's going to be going into turn number 3. I feel like that's where Cody Cosgrove is the strongest.
We've seen that all throughout the day today. We've seen that where he was willing to push in the sprint race. Now he tries to close in another car length. Of note, John Marchbanks again is in the backdrop and will likely reach them by the final lap. Where is the big question? Cosgrove, better run heading up to 7. But Ray Kingsbury's been better on the exit there all day. He's able to line up the curbing better and gains another half a tenth to a tenth. There's the lap traffic, the GTP of Marchbanks. Under a minute to go in the season, and Blake Reynolds has lost his cushion now. He's had some slow ups, and he had the service slowdown on the final lap of his season. Brendan Lambert's in drafting distance.
I think there should be about a lap and a half left here with these GTPs, but just as you called it, Blake Reynolds running into a few hiccups later in the race. It has brought in Brandon Lambert, that number 46 car, right into the mirror, and you know that he can see them in that mirror.
We'll see how the timing plays out if they get the white flag of the checkered. Once they come to the stripe, it looks to be close.
Cosgrove just sent it on Ray Kingsbury into turn number 3. A new GT3 leader, Cody Cosgrove, out front for the first time.
Here's the thing, one more lap, because with 4 seconds, make it 3 to spare, Reynolds triggers the white flag lap of the season. Ray Kingsbury through turn 5, side by side. Cosgrove tries to keep it to the outside. Off to turn 6. He has the preferred groove to clear, but we've seen the pinch work off to 7. Not for Ray. Cosgrove to the lead.
It is so tough to hang the production cars out around the outside, but Ray Kingsbury is going to really try and push the issue around turns 5 and 6, 7, and now still side by side going into the final 2 turns. Approaching turn number 9, he actually lifts off of the gas, says, hey, I want to follow you through this one.
Oh. Ray Kingsbury goes hard on the throttle. He's forced to check up. He's got to slow down coming to the white flag. Cosgrove breaks the tow. Ray Kingsbury with a massive slow up, forced to take the slowdown penalty with one more lap to go in their season.
White flag for the GT3 leaders, but Blake Reynolds is coming around turn number 9.
For the final time this season, Blake Reynolds exits the final corner as a winner. This time, he gets a GTP championship. Blake Reynolds is your GTP Penguin RC Simulation Grand Am Series champion. He holds off Lambert by 3 seconds after another slowdown for Brendan Lambert. And Ray Kingsbury looking to see if there's any luck to get to the 18. Cosgrove looking for the win. Ray Kingsbury, though, in control of the championship.
Cosgrove heading towards the sweeping turns for the final time. He's got Ray Kingsbury comfortably about a second and a half back. I'll have to see about this math here, see if Cody Cosgrove is actually going to jump up a few positions. But it looks like it will be Ray Kingsbury claiming that points championship lead. Kevin Fanning actually only about 3.5 seconds back, but here comes Cody Cosgrove through the sweeping turn number 9. Just got to keep it on the racetrack here. Jump it over the turn number 10 apex curb. Look for Barney waving that checkered flag, and the winner of the 50-minute, Cody Cosgrove. Your championship, though, goes to Ray Kingsbury.
And a burnout party already in turn 1 for Blake Reynolds. That's why the smoke puff was there. There's a burnout party for Gary Freeman as well. But for the AM side, you know who gets to do one? Tim Brokaw. Why not go backwards yourself here? Blake Reynolds showed you can do it. His celebration, he'll try and see if he can complete this lap backwards as he picks up the AM title.
You know, all the cool kids are doing it, Justin.
I mean, Blake Reynolds is technically a part of the Cool Kids Club. In fact, he runs the Cool Kids Club for the series. It's not a real club yet. Give it an hour.
I mean, this is just a front-engine, front-wheel drive car going around the racetrack. I don't see any problems with this.
So the celebration is on, and at this point, let's take a look at the unofficial race results. Blake Reynolds gets the win and gets the title. Brandon Lambert in second. Chris Wetz, Kieran Forrest, and John Marchbanks, the top 5 in the finishers in the GTP. Cody Cosgrove finished off with the win, but it's Ray Kingsbury with the title tonight when it comes to the GT3 unofficially in Pro. Tentatively with that title. Also heard that apparently there was contact between him and Gary Freeman during the celebration party, and apparently Ray Kingsbury had a wheel cable rip. In turn, Tim Brokaw secures himself the AM title with the start tonight and with the strong finishes. There's your finishers on screen. So what a night, Joey, to say the very least. Our championship front runners already just about set.
I loved it. You know, the 20-minute sprint, it was a little bit mild, dare I say, in the first half of it, and then all of a sudden it erupted at the end. Had a little bit of a break or a little bit of a warm-up for the competitors to get into the 50-minute, but once that green flag flew, didn't matter if it was aggressive moves from Marchbanks or Lambert with the lockup, the pit stop cycles really throwing everything for a loop. You really couldn't ask for more between the sprint and this long feature.
See several of your championship competitors in the midst of different celebration processes. At this point, Brokaw's now going backwards while going backwards around the circuit. So while he gets that sorted out, why don't we start things off from his perspective, since he's the one on screen right now. Tim, tentatively the AM champion. I can see you're trying to learn the track backwards here. How are you feeling about the AM title?
Oh, well, I thought I had a really good chance to get it going into this race. I knew that I had to finish clean, but I also wanted to really try for it and keep pace. I think I did like maybe one lap that was almost as fast as Kevin and those guys, and then after that, they kept walking away. So it's awesome but I think I'm going to be competing with those guys next season. So it's still a big ladder to climb, if you catch my drift.
I can get the drift there, but
Feels
in turn,
feels great. Super happy
yes,
about it.
that's good to hear. And in turn, how would you describe the battle throughout the season? Because we've seen a lot of competitors obviously make starts this season, but it takes a lot of effort to do so in the AMP consistently every week, like you did from round 2 onward.
Yeah, I think we had a couple of people that I think really would have given me a good run for it. Kevin Bogart had to miss a couple rounds, which was unfortunate. I think he would have definitely been a contender for the win. Marwan Moftah dropping out of the season early, he definitely could have took it home. Um, it's unfortunate that those guys didn't make as many rounds as I did, because things might have turned out differently. But I'm always looking to race against somebody, so hopefully those guys keep coming back. And I think next season, Brian Sohn, he's gonna be my benchmark. That's who I want to race next season. I'm gonna race against Brian Sohn. So he kept me honest in that feature race. I was trying to get away from him. I couldn't do it.
Well, hope you picked up a lot of data by going backwards here during the celebration. Anyone you would give a shout out to as you finish the backwards lap within a lap within a lap?
I would love to give a shout out to all the Too Fast guys and FTF guys and the series sponsors, Penguin RC, SimCar, Team R Design, Team Penguin, everybody in the league who shows up week to week. Because without someone to race against, we're just hot lapping out here. So everyone involved, I'd like to shout out.
Well, congratulations, unofficially, the AM title going your direction.
Thank you.
Tim Brokaw, take the time to speak with us. Cody Crossgrove getting the GT3 Pro victory today. He's with Joey.
Cody, congratulations on that checkered flag. What a race between yourself and Ray Kingsbury tonight. How did it feel?
That was quite the battle, because I knew me and Ray, because we're teammates, me and Ray were pretty equal on pace, so I knew I had to be on my mark to beat him.
So I noticed you fell back maybe about 2 seconds early on in the race and then really had to claw it all back. At what point did you feel like you had a shot at the win tonight?
When I saw it was like 10 minutes to go, and I just kept reeling Ray in slowly and slowly, I knew I had a shot, and that's why I gave it a shot on that corner, and I made it stick, and he didn't make it easy on me, but we made it clean as possible.
I was going to say, were you aware that Kevin Fanning was only a handful of seconds behind you guys? And if there was any sort of contact out there, it would have been really close. Were you guys aware he was that right there?
No, like I thought he was going to be like even closer than what me and Ray looked, because we were dealing with a lot of GTP traffic at the time, and I thought Kevin was going to catch up right away. So he must have been dealing with some GTP traffic as well.
Well, tremendous results tonight. A second and a first. Great job. Anybody you want to give a shout out to while we still got you?
Yeah, I'd like to thank all the guys in SimCar, FTF, Penguin RC, everybody that's involved in this series. To be honest, they're all good people, and without all these guys, it wouldn't happen. So I'd like to thank everyone that is involved with this series.
Well, that was the driver of the number 18 Ferrari, Cody Crossgrove, claiming the checkered flag in the 50-minute feature.
Thanks, guys.
Crossgrove getting the victory to close out the feature run here tonight. That was after some intense battling with Ray Kingsbury. We'll look to see if we can get the chance to speak with him in a few moments, as he's currently, according to the new Discord emoji sequences, hauling Penguin. You know who hauled some speed tonight? Blake Reynolds. Blake Reynolds getting himself the sweep here in the final round of the season, getting yourself the championship. Blake, The numbers are now into the spreadsheet. It's now officially official. You get the championship by 31 over Brendan Lambert. How are you feeling?
Great. I told Joe earlier, I don't like to win my own league, but it was a hard fought season. Brandon kept me honest. When Flynn was here, it kept me honest. Same with Gonzo. And both the starts of these races are wild. I cannot seem to just keep it clean. I don't know. Cold tires are really weird in this car. And I'm constantly telling myself, I got it, and then I overstep because the track's freezing cold, or the tires also are freezing cold, and I don't know. I'm just not used to being in clean air, I guess, a lot in these cars. I'm usually kind of chasing someone, playing cat. So, whenever I do get the lead, that tends to happen on the first lap. But yeah, I mean, these races, especially that feature. I mean, Kieran Forrest led how many laps? 4? Are you kidding me? That was awesome.
Yeah, that was one of the wilder races I think you could have, to say the very least. And talk us through with all that craziness happened, not just with the matching slowdowns, but we're talking about having someone who switched over a couple races ago, like Marshbanks, that was basically trying to lick the stamp, send it, and in turn knocking over every mailbox on the way.
Well, I think I gave him some motivation. In SimCar, anytime someone has a setup, especially me, if I have a setup for a specific track, I just share it to everyone. I give it to anyone in my same car. So earlier, I gave John my setup, and then I went down there because he was 6 or 7 tenths off in the warm up, and I'm like, "Hey, John, did you get my setup?" He's like, "Yeah, I got your setup. I just can't seem to find the pace." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So that must have lit a fire under him, because he showed up to the race, especially the sprint, drove through the field and was contending for that, and then was a contender for most of the feature race too. So it was a great race with him. At Coda, me and him had a great battle, and I think the previous race too. I can't remember which one that was, but it was good fun. Good fun with John. I'm glad he switched over. The GTP field has been very, very fun these last couple of rounds.
So in turn, it's already expected to be a busy time in the next few days, because on the 6th, correct me if I'm wrong, you're running the 2.4 with SimCar in cooperation with FTFGG. Talk us through about the upcoming event.
Yeah, Jake Poulin reached out to me and was like, "Hey, you want to do a SimCar collab event?" I was like, "Sure thing." First thing I could think of, IMSA cars at the Daytona Road Course in January, especially before everyone else kicks theirs off. So January 6th, we'll be having a SimCar FTF collab event here on FTFGG. And there's an interesting twist. I don't think those who already know have seen this, but the interesting twist is we have added a next-gen class for that race. So you could be a GTP, you could be a GT3, but you can also be a next-gen car. We're having all three showing up. We're cutting some of those GT3s that, maybe people don't race, like the Ford and McLaren. I think we're getting rid of the Lambo, too.
So we'll see how things play out in about, give or take, it's about a week's time, in fact.
Yeah.
Anyone want to give a shout out to for how this season played out?
Oh, of course. Penguin RC Simulation, Brian's son. Go to shop.penguinrc.com. You can use code Blake for a little discount. They sponsor our league as well as being on my race car and a proud sponsor of mine. My admin team, Ray Kingsbury, Brandon Lambert, and soon to be Kevin Bogart at Too Fast. And Too Fast Racing, Kevin Bogart and Gary Freeman and all those guys over there. FTF, y'all, for broadcasting with us, and our alternate broadcast, Trevor Greenfield. He was doing on Too Fast YouTube channel. It's been I think this is our third season. We've learned some things, but the last 2 seasons we've learned some things. So, good participation, everyone that's shown up, and I'm glad everything went the way it did, and you'll see us in the future.
Thank you so much for the time, Blake, and congratulations on the championship, and good luck in about a week's time with the collab coming up.
Yep, thank you.
That's Blake Reynolds picking up the championship at GTP. He's also one of the main organizers and founders of SimCar competition. I'd like to thank him and the rest of our top finishers for taking the time to speak with us. And also like to take the time again to congratulate Ray Kingsbury, who officially gets the championship as we estimate by 10 points. That being over Kevin Fanning. He hauled Penguin tonight to get his GT3 Pro Championship. So in turn, Joey, your final thoughts on tonight as the season comes to a close.
I loved the entire season from the kickoff all the way to ending it here at the Red Bull Ring. I think that the SimCar competitors, despite, going into battle week in, week out with each other, they showed tremendous respect. And then it ultimately came down to multiple cars fighting for the championship. There's 2 cars that had the championship eligible in GTP, 4 drivers that could have won it in GT3. So when you look at a competitive series, it doesn't matter if you're competing for race wins, sprints, or mains, or those enduro longer events. I think that SimCar has a really, really cool format over here. Doesn't matter if you're looking for prototypes or GT3s, a great place to come and race.
So in turn, we'd like to thank you for tuning in and watching along with tonight's season finale for the Penguin RC Simulation Grand Am Series and for SimCar from an FTFGG. We'd like to also encourage you to watch along with the collab as talked about because the FTFGG and SimCar 2.4 Hours of Daytona and its multi-class endurance racing is on the 5th and the 6th. Plenty of drivers already showing interest to see how they play things out during the special event. We'll see how drivers play things out with the cars you've seen on hand here tonight in GTP and GT3, but also the next-gen cars. But the NASCAR stock car machinery throughout the next week. So in turn, it's time to say goodbye. For my co-announcer Joey Atterbury, for our producer Zach Johnson, I'm Justin Prince saying so long. Enjoy the rest of your day or evening, and enjoy the new year. You've been watching the season finale for SimCar and the Penguin RC Simulation Grand Am Series from Austria. Good night from Spielberg.